Hello chess lovers, welcome back to the channel. Today, we are analyzing an exciting game from World Rapid 2025 in Doha. Black plays with great energy and finishes the game with a beautiful knight checkmate. Let's go move by move, understand each piece, and learn how Black converted activity into victory. Move 1, d4. White opens the game by pushing the pawn from d2 to d4, controlling the center and opening lines for the queen and dark-squared bishop. Move 1, Black replies with knight f6. Black develops the knight from g8 to f6, attacking the central squares e4 and d5. Move 2, knight f3. White develops the knight from g1 to f3, supporting the d4 pawn and preparing kingside safety. Move 2, Black replies with d5. Black pushes the pawn from d7 to d5, directly challenging White's central pawn. Move 3, c4. White plays the pawn from c2 to c4, attacking the d5 pawn and entering queen's pawn structures. Move 3, Black replies with e6. Black supports the center with a pawn from e7 to e6, opening the diagonal for the dark-squared bishop. Move 4, knight bd2. White develops the knight from b1 to d2, keeping the position flexible. Move 4, Black replies with c5. Black pushes the pawn from c6 to c5, striking the center and aiming for active play. Move 5, c-take d5. White captures with the pawn from c4 to d5, exchanging central pawns. Move 5, Black replies with e-takes d5. Black recaptures with the pawn from e6 to d5, opening the e-file. Move 6, g3. White plays the pawn from g2 to g3, preparing to fianchetto the bishop. Move 6, Black replies with knight c6. Black develops the knight from b8 to c6, adding pressure to d4. Move 7, knight b3. White moves the knight from d2 to b3, attacking the c5 pawn. Move 7, Black replies with c-takes d4. Black captures with the pawn from c5 to d4, opening the center. Move 8, knight b-takes d4. White recaptures using the knight from b3 to d4, centralizing the piece. Move 8, Black replies with bishop b4 check. Black gives check by developing the bishop from f8 to b4, gaining tempo. Move 9, bishop d2. White blocks the check with the bishop from c1 to d2. Move 9, Black replies with queen f5. Black brings the queen from d8 to a5, pinning the knight and increasing pressure. Move 10, knight takes c6. White captures the knight, using the knight from d4 to c6. Move 10, Black replies with b takes c6. Black recaptures with the pawn from b7 to c6, opening the b-file. Move 11, bishop g2. White fianchettos the bishop from f1 to g2, aiming at the long diagonal. Move 11, Black replies with bishop takes d2 check. Black trades bishops by moving the bishop from b4 to d2, capturing White's bishop. Move 12, queen takes d2. White recaptures with the queen from d1 to d2. Move 12, Black replies with queen takes d2 check. Black exchanges queens by moving the queen from a5 to d2, forcing simplification. Move 13, knight takes d2. White recaptures with the knight from f3 to d2. Move 13, Black replies with bishop a6. Black develops the bishop from c8 to a6, placing it on an active diagonal. Move 14, knight b3. White moves the knight from d2 to b3, repositioning. Move 14, Black replies with castle. Black castles kingside, moving the king from e8 to g8 and rook from h8 to f8. Move 15, knight c5. White jumps the knight from b3 to c5, creating pressure. Move 15, Black replies with bishop c8. Black retreats the bishop from a6 to c8, preparing regrouping. Move 16, short castling. White castles kingside, improving king's safety. Move 16. Black replies with knight d7. Black moves the knight from c5 to d7, planning centralization. Move 17. Knight b3. White retreats the knight from c5 to b3. Move 17. Black replies with knight e5. Black centralizes the knight from d7 to e5, a strong outpost. Move 18. Rook a c1. White activates the rook from a1 to c1. Move 18. Black replies with rook b8. Black moves the rook from a8 to b8, preparing queenside play. Move 19. e3. White pushes the pawn from e2 to e3, opening lines for the bishop. Move 19. Black replies with bishop a6. Black repositions the bishop from c8 to a6, targeting the center. Move 20. Rook fd1. White moves the rook from f1 to d1, supporting the center. Move 20. Black replies with bishop c4. Black plays the bishop from a6 to c4, a very strong diagonal. Move 21. Rook c3. White shifts the rook from c1 to c3, defending pawns. Move 21. Black replies with bishop takes b3. Black captures with the bishop from c4 to b3, winning a pawn. Move 22. A takes b3. White recaptures, using the pawn from a2 to b3, weakening structure. Move 22. Black replies with rook b6. Black lifts the rook from b8 to b6, preparing an attack. Move 23. f4. White pushes the pawn from f3 to f4, starting kingside play. Move 23. Black replies with knight g4. Black jumps the knight from e5 to g4, creating threats. Move 24. h3. White pushes the pawn from h2 to h3, attacking the knight. Move 24. Black replies with knight f6. Black retreats the knight from g4 to f6, safely. Move 25. Rook a1. White repositions the rook from a6 to a1. Move 25. Black replies with a6. Black plays the pawn from a7 to a6, controlling b5. Move 26. Rook a c1. White brings the rook from a1 to c1, doubling rooks. Move 26. Black replies with h6. Black plays the pawn from h7 to h6, creating luft. Move 27. Rook takes c6. White captures with a rook from c3 to c6, winning a pawn. Move 27. Black replies with rook takes b3. Black counters with a rook from b6 to b3, gaining material. Move 28. Rook takes a6. White captures the pawn using the rook from c6 to a6. Move 28. Black replies with rook takes b2. Black invades with a rook from b3 to b2, very dangerous. Move 29. Rook a7. White moves the rook from a6 to a7, attacking the 7th rank. Move 29. Black replies with rook e8. Black centralizes the rook from f8 to e8. Move 30. Rook c3. White retreats the rook from c1 to c3. Move 30. Black replies with rook e2. Black invades with a rook from e8 to e2, dominating. Move 31. Rook c7. White doubles rooks on the 7th rank. Move 31. Black replies with rook 8 takes e3. Black sacrifices the rook from e8 to e3, opening lines. Move 32. Rook c8 check. White checks with the rook from c7 to c8. Move 32. Black replies with king h7. Black moves the king from g8 to h7. Move 33. King h2. White moves the king from g1 to h2. Move 33. Black replies with knight e4. Black jumps the knight from f6 to e4, threatening mate. Move 34. f5. White pushes the pawn from f4 to f5, last attempt. Move 34. Black replies with rook takes g3. Black sacrifices the rook from e3 to g3, opening the king. Move 35. Rook a8. White plays the rook from a7 to a8, desperate defense. Move 35. Black replies with rook g takes g2 check. Black captures with the rook from g3 to g2, giving check. Move 36, king h1. White moves the king from h2 to h1. Move 36. Black replies with knight g3 checkmate. The knight from e4 to g3 delivers checkmate. A perfect finish. Final lesson. This game teaches us, heavy checkmark active rooks win games. Heavy checkmark knights dominate open positions. Heavy checkmark piece coordination is more important than material. If you enjoyed this move-by-move chess explanation, please like, share, and subscribe for more high-quality chess content. Thank you. God bless everyone.